we're looking at the whole interconnectedness of the body, and no one system is going to function alone. If we're talking about hormones, we're talking about nervous system, we're talking about digestion, we're talking about reproductive system, everything. Where I see a lot of therapy, what it comes to is they just treat the symptoms, right? We call them symptom chasers, right? Everything is planned out from a logical, conscious mind. But the uterus is like, I am holding on to all this trauma there. The moment they make the appointment, they already know that the body has made that connection.
Welcome to Get Obsessed. I'm Natalie Cacan. This season, I'm in conversation with people who built methods, founders who built tools, women who lived through something the system didn't know what to do with, so they built what they couldn't find. Today, I'm in conversation with Tony Eng, a bodyworker who's been working in fascia, cranial, sacral, and a depth most practitioners never even learned how to access. We have known each other for 20 years. He has been one of the practitioners who has held me at the hardest moments of my life, and he's the practitioner who taught me that the body makes the appointment before you do. Let's get into it. Hey, I'm so excited to have this incredible guest on the podcast today. His name is Tony Eng, and he has been doing bodywork for several decades now. He specializes in cranial work, neural work, visceral work, fascia, the whole lot. I'm going to let him introduce himself because he's going to do a way better job than I'm doing. And I want to make sure that the credit is where it's due because he's been doing this work for so long. So Tony, welcome.
Thank you so much, Natalie. So yeah, I've been doing bodywork for 20 years, actually 20 years exactly this year. Yeah, for my practice, I specialize in a lot of craniosacral, visceral manipulation, neural manipulation, doing brain work, but really at the end of the day, working as the body as a whole, right? And at the end, it's just techniques, but understanding the body, helping people with nervous system regulation, for example, helping with digestive issues, whatever comes in, but really looking at the body as a whole has been my practice for quite a while now. I think the shift has happened probably about 10, 15 years ago, where a lot of us go into body work doing the usual. You go to the Swedish round and then you do the relaxation, you work in spas, you the grind, and then that just didn't work out. At some point, you either burn out or you get bored, right? So yeah, so for the last 20 years, I've been really diving into body work. Yeah.
Mm, I love that. And it's so true. The grind is real. We met, I think, almost 15 years ago when I was doing massage therapy as well. And it's true. Once you start working with people in the spas and in the clinics, it's like people just want their symptoms, or it's not so much that people want. It's like that's what the industry is set up for, just cut and dry, an hour in, an hour out. But it really is that it's that whole body feeling. Like, how do you get past just the symptom of what's happening in the neck to really dive into maybe it's something that's happening in the pelvis, maybe it's something that's happening in the shoulder. So after decades of experience with the body, how do you understand its interconnectedness? And what have those years taught you about the way the body functions as a whole?
I think things have shifted when I switched the way I looked at the body. So it was no longer about technique, right? So mentioning I do this technique, that technique, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's taking the time to understand the body's anatomy, the physiology on a deeper level. If someone has hormonal issues, what is happening to that person, right? They may have frozen shoulder, they might have energy problems, they might have sleep issues. We're looking at the whole interconnectedness of the body, and no one system is going to function alone. If we're talking about hormones, we're talking about nervous system, we're talking about digestion, we're talking about reproductive system, everything. Where I see a lot of therapy, what it comes to is they just treat the symptoms, right? We call them symptom chasers, right? Oh, you have a shoulder pain, let's go rub the shoulder. Or you have hormonal problems, let's look at hormones, right? But it goes way deeper than that. So I think for myself, when I started to find the interconnectedness of the body and system, that's when my practice shifted, and the effectiveness of working with clients has also shifted in a way where, oh, this is not just in and out. Like we're saying, go in for a massage, feel good for a couple of days, and then, oh, my symptoms are back. It's really investing in what is going on, right? On a
Mhm.
physical level, on an emotional level, spiritual level, everything. And the one thing my client said, wow, someone's listening.
Mm.
And it's not where I'm psychoanalyzing, right? That's beyond what I do and also my licensing. I'm not a psychotherapist, but just to be present, I'm like, I hear you. And not just the person, but the body. When I'm communicating with the body, I what you're going through. I feel that protection. I feel that over buzzing or lack of energy, vitality in the tissues itself and on a cellular level. And that becomes very interesting when you start to treat someone like that.
That sounds so interesting. And I'm sure as a client of yours, I feel so honored to have you listen to my body. What was the technique or the method that really dropped you into that interconnectedness of the body?
So, like I was mentioning, I started with Swedish 20 years ago. So before that, I was in the corporate world, and then I transitioned into the bodywork world, not knowing what it was. And bodywork 20 years ago was very different than bodywork today. You went to get a massage for luxury, right? Because your insurance covers it. You go to a spa, you go for relaxation, but you don't go for problems, right? You don't go for issues. So I've explored the whole spectrum of different techniques from Swedish. I went into sports, masokinesitherapy, prenatal. I've done it all. But again, it felt I'm just doing those workshops. That pressure as a massage therapist in Quebec is we need to build our hours, but there was never a moment where I felt like I was confident till I start to notice where I fell on craniosacral therapy. Craniosacral therapy was the pivot of the change in my career of massage therapy, at least. I don't even like to call it massage therapy. It's more body work because it englobes so much more, right? Because when we see massage therapy, we think of massage, right? In a lot of contexts of that, but it's a lot of body work, I find. There was craniosacral when I was like, wow, we can dive deeper into the body on a nervous system level. We can reset the nervous system. And again, it's not like deep tissue or kind of work where we manipulate, where we listen. We support the body and give the body what it needs so it can do what it's supposed to do. So I'm like, wow, that's another way of looking at the body where we're merely facilitators. We're just facilitating the body to do what it needs to do, right? Yeah. And I think from there, then I went to more visceral work, again, another intelligence of the organs, and then neural work, and then brain work. So going deeper and deeper and deeper in supporting the system, right? And I notice in my training now, the more advanced I am in my training, I would say 85% of that training gears towards learning deeper into the anatomy and physiology, and then 20% about technique. Where back then, when you're a beginner, it's 85%, 90% is technique. You learn the technique, they give you a recipe, shoulder problems. We do the same thing for every single person. That's how we learn as the foundation. But the more and more I learn about the body and the interconnectedness, trainings that I go through, it is a lot of heavy base anatomy physiology going deeper from there. And it's oh, technique is the same as long as you can connect, you can listen, you can conceptualize, visualize what's going on, the body will do what it needs to do. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's so interesting because it's true. As when you first start going into this field, you learn the technique and that sets the foundation, right? You have some tools to help you dive into the body. But as you start to learn and as you get more qualified and dive deeper into the body, it becomes your own recipe of how the body is unwinding in front of you. So when clients come onto your table, is it listen first, then act, or how do you approach the body?
Of course we listen. So not listening to the person. If it's a new client, I do take the time to sit down with them. So what is your history? What is the story? What are the symptoms? What is happening? What have you gone through? What's the trauma that's coming up for you? So we try to get as much as we can the story from the conscious mind that they're trying to explain there. Of course, people are going to come in that's something that's more chronic, right? Something that they've been living with for maybe the last few weeks or last few months, something that they've been struggling with. But if we really dig in deeper, it's something deeper underlining from maybe childhood, from a trauma, from repetitive trauma that they might be gone through, right? But they might not be aware of that because the conscious mind will only protect the person from going through something that is dangerous, for example. But the moment the person feels safe or the body feeling safe, they'll start to express certain things that they didn't even realize that they're still holding on to. So from that perspective, the moment they make the appointment, they already know that the body has made that connection. There's something there that maybe someone has not been able to dive into on a energetic level, perhaps you can say. All right. By the time we meet, it's let's dive in deeper. And then by the time we get on the table, it's exploring in the tissue, listening to the body, listening to the body's intelligence. And we never force, at least in my treatments, we never force the body where it doesn't want to go. We support where it wants to go. And I always tell my clients, we're holding space here and knowing that whatever comes up, it's your body trying to communicate with you. It's communicate, even though sometimes it might feel scary, right? For some people, I'm like, oh, I don't want to go through, knowing that the body is ready to let you know this, as I'm merely the facilitator holding that space, holding the tissue as like a messenger, right? So the conscious mind and the non-conscious mind is aware of what's going on. And then at the end of the day, the body will make that decision of what do I want to do with this, right? I've had several situations where the person's, I need to let this go. I want to let this go. I need to let it go. But the body's like, hell no, that's not going to happen because they're in a protective mechanism. The body needs to feel safe. So the idea is through touch, through body work is, does the body feel safe enough to let go of whatever needs to let go?
Yes, that is so important. And having the right facilitator is so important, feeling the support in the room. Also, the taking the time to explain what's going on, what you're doing step by step, making sure that the person feels safe. There's something that has happened in the room with us recently where I was like, I don't know what's going on. And you took the time to explain to me your mind is saying a word, but your body's interpreting all the experiences that you've had around this word. And just opening up that lens just helped me to feel safe again, to be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm allowing experience to live through my body. And it's incredible. Can you speak a little bit about that, about the connection between the conscious mind and the somatic body?
Would it be okay to just give a little brief talk about your session, if that's okay? Yeah, if
Yes.
you're
Open here.
So what's very interesting is when we're working with your tissues, your conscious mind was saying, I need to, I need to. And then, but when we got into your uterus, we're talking to the uterus. I'm like, is it okay to connect with the uterus? And then there was a blank. I don't know. I don't know what it wants to say. And then there was a question to let go, right? I don't know if you remember that. There was that pause where there was lack of that connection between the conscious mind. Like, we need to let this go. We need to do this. We need to get this appointment. We need to do that. So everything is planned out from a logical conscious mind. But the uterus is like, I am holding on to all this trauma there. I don't feel safe to let this go. I need to feel safe first. So I was doing an internal dialogue with the uterus saying, what do you need? And then I kept bringing it back to conscious mind. Is it okay to talk to the uterus? And then the conscious was like, I don't know. Can I? Right? But the moment at one point there was that connection, okay, the uterus needs to feel safe in order to release, right? Not the mind telling us I am safe. Maybe because we need to connect to the tissue, to the organ itself, What does the organ need? What does it need in order to feel safe from that perspective? So by working from that level of on a cellular level, just making sure not just Natalie is safe, but also the tissue needs to know that it's safe, right? If not, it will just continue to protect because that is the pattern, right? So when we're doing what we call somatoemotional release too, it's part of craniosacral, is we dialogue with the organ itself as its own entity, its own intelligence.
Yeah, I think, and we'll dive into the fertility world because I think it's so prevalent because of how much trauma my uterus carries currently, is because I've miscarried twice in the past 12 weeks and I haven't gotten the treatment from the healthcare world that I was expecting, or at least thought just on a base level, this is like human care. And so when I made the choice to come see you and say, okay, like I really need that deep support, that deep trust that I can feel safe so I can unravel and I can speak to my uterus, that came because of a deep need. And so I felt so disconnected from my uterus because of what has been going on in the past 3 months. And not because of my body, but really because of the outside world telling me that I didn't know anything and how I was advocating for myself. They just kept pushing me away. They kept gaslighting me. I just felt super defeated. And then as we were talking about things after the session had finished, you were also saying it's true. There's so many women that are coming with infertility, and it's more and more prevalent. Wait, my word. Prevalent, thank you. And I want to talk about that because I want to hear from you what you're seeing in this space, just because of the conversation that we were having.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I'm there to listen to, but not to the point where I'm listening to their story or feel bad for them or that's the situation, but I'm tuning into how their body is responding, how their nervous system is responding, right? How's their body holding on to maybe that stress that's there, right? All that influence that's happening is going to do a number on their nervous system. But if the nervous system is going to be hot, jacked up, that's going to influence how it signals to the body. And then if we talk about the endocrine system, the neuroendocrine system, are they going to signal the right amount of hormones for that to happen too? As I'm having that discussion with my client, not just from a verbal perspective, I'm already tuning into their body of what's going on. So I was mentioning earlier that everything is interconnected. So when I do work with someone that perhaps infertility, I'm not looking at infertility. I'm looking at this person. I'm looking at the fascia system. I'm looking at reproductive organs. How's the motility? How is the hormone? How is the signaling of that from a bodywork perspective? And try to bring things back to what we call homeostasis, a balance. So the body will start to function when it is in a homeostasis. But when it's in a panic mode, when it's in a fight or flight mode, of course, it's not going to function the way it's. So the first thing is let's turn down the volume. Let's turn down all the alarm systems, right? So you can even imagine me going into the body and looking for all those alarms that are sounding. But where is that source happening from? Right?
Mm.
There's a fire in the room. We're not gonna, the first thing we're gonna look is the alarm system is gonna sound, right? We're gonna look for the cause. Where's the fire coming from? But in the body, you're having alarms sounding off. Those are symptoms. But if we just look at the alarm, we don't look at the cause, that's still there, right?
Yeah, I feel like we have to be so hyper vigilant in the healthcare world today. We have to advocate for ourselves. We have to scream from the rooftops to be like, no, let's not go straight to danger. I want to seek prevention. I want to make sure that I feel good and I don't want it to get too far that I can't turn back. So please look at me as a human and not just as a symptom. And what you do on your table is you look at a human and you look at the ecosystem and you give full care. And it's such a pleasure to be in to share space with that feeling, with you to be like, oh yeah, I can drop. I know, I trust that this person isn't just, okay, we're checking off boxes to make sure that we looked at the high danger, the red flags. You're looking underneath it and saying, okay, what else is there? What's going on to set off these alarms? And it's so appreciated. But like when we come off your table, how do we keep that communication with the body? How can we tune in more skillfully to these signals that the body is giving us?
So I usually let my clients know, see what happens, right? And anything can happen without having a lot of expectation, because we all have expectation. How many sessions till we heal, right? In 3 sessions, I completely heal my trauma for over 20 years, right? That's the ongoing thing we always hear, right? I've had clients that come in, I've had depression for 20 years. How many sessions till I get off my antidepressants? I'm like, oh my. So the one thing I recommend to my clients is listen to the body, listen to those subtleties. I feel a little bit more energy. I feel less angry. Those are little changes and shifts that we forget because we're looking at those big changes. So I recommend looking at those little changes first, just to notice, because we are making a shift in the body. When the body shifts inside, your outside world's going to change, your inside world's going to change. The people that see you is going to change also. The way you communicate with others are going to change as well. So first of all, I said, notice those things. Notice those little different. So a lot of clients also ask, so what do I do to continue this work? Feed into, is it helping this person or is it overwhelming this person as well, right? If this person has the capacity to be neutral, great, let's go there. But if it's creating more stress, more of that overwhelming the body, I would just say, come back next week and let's explore again, right? One of my students said recently, also my client, which I find fascinating, as body workers, it's a blessing and it's also a curse, right? When we get hurt, when we get injured, when we have problems, it's a blessing because we know so much about our body. But it's also a curse because now, because we know so much of our body gets overwhelmed, we can't become neutral when we treat ourselves.
It's so easy to say, but so hard to do, especially when you're like, exactly like you said, you go onto the table, you're like, how many sessions till I'm healed? Or how much till I can get off of this? Or like, when is my uterus going to be healed? Because I want to move on with my life. But what I'm hearing is you're saying you have to drop expectation and you have to learn how to listen. And if listening is causing too much harm, take the pressure off and let yourself get out of your mind in whatever way that is possible.
And but I would even say, let me do the work. So you can completely let go of those expectations, because how can you be neutral and treating yourself at the same time? I can't do it. If whenever I have something, I need to go see someone because I'm like, could be that. And then I'm in an alert state, treatment mode, and I'm supposed to relax and let the treatment happen. That's impossible, almost impossible. What you can start to do is start to visualize the body, that it is a self-healing mechanism, that it is doing the work. It is trusting the process of that and giving that body a little support, saying, hey, maybe you're okay, right? Instead of, you need to be okay. That's a lot of pressure for the body. But if letting the body know, I'm here to support, what do you need to communicate with me? Why is it happening? Or not necessarily why. Is there a message that you're trying to communicate with me through these symptoms? Because sometimes why can end up more of that spiraling into that psychological, this and this and this happened and this.
I think you said it before and you said it so well. When you make that call to create that appointment, your body's already choosing. Your body's already choosing that support. So lean into it. Don't think that you have to take care of it. You've chosen a person, a support team to help you move through whatever is going on in your body. And I think that was so well said. I'd love to speak about the relationship between the nervous system and the endocrine system. You were speaking about it earlier, about how everything is interconnected. So, how do they influence each other?
So when we talk about the endocrine, we also talk about the neuroendocrine system, right? So we probably heard that a lot, the neuroendocrine. So how the nervous system communicates with the hormones is through parts of the brain. So we have the hypothalamus as part of the brain that's going to signal to the pituitary gland. And then the pituitary gland is then going to send the signals through the bloodstream, let's say for the reproductive system, through the gonads. So that's going to send it through the bloodstream. So we're talking about, for example, estrogen, progesterone, or FSH levels, LH levels. Those are all going to have that communication between how the hypothalamus is going to send that message. If there is danger, for example, if there's a lot of stress, that's going to shut down part of the signal, right? So for you, Natalie, when we were working on your the what we call HPG axis, hypothalamus pituitary gonad axis, there was a miscommunication, almost that those two areas were not communicating with each other. So the idea is to bring that harmony back so that signaling from the hypothalamus will get that signaling to that pituitary to release the hormones and release that, and then to stimulate that estrogen, progesterone through the reproductive organs, right? So we're in my perspective and my training, it's like we don't just look at reproductive organs. Let's say there is reproductive issues. Always look at the influence of the neuroendocrine system. And then we can even work our way back. If we look at hypothalamus, what else is around that area? The brain structures, the nervous system, right? Do we need to downregulate the whole nervous system, the brain stem, the fight or flight system that's sending that signal to the hypothalamus to react? And that's sending that pathway there.
So, would you say that the nervous system, when it's in its fight and flight, can block or can intercept signals to the neuroendocrine system?
There can be a possibility, absolutely. A lot of people that one of the main factors is stress,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And so going back to that analogy of can we tone down those alarm systems so the HPG axis can start doing its work, right? So again, we're looking from that perspective, but we can also look from a fascial perspective. Maybe there's a mobility issues in the pelvic floor area, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk more about fascia because that is really interesting. Because in the literature that I've read, fascia can also be a communicator of hormones. And if the fascia is wound or tightly bound, it can actually intercept hormones from signaling. Do you share that point of view?
Fascia is everything, right? It's going to envelope everything from arteries to veins to reproductive organs, the brain, the nervous system. Everything is englobed into that. And when there is any kind of trauma, let's say, what happens is the fascia starts to get restricted, like scar tissue buildup. And that's going to send a signal, okay, there is a dysfunction here. We can't function at 100%, either through the organs itself, the motility of the organs, the mobility of the organs, pelvic floor. There's something that's not there. So all the tension is going to go and protect that area. So one of the mistakes a lot of therapists do is, oh, there is low back pain or hip pain. Let's go in and then release those psoas muscles. But the psoas muscles are sometimes there to protect those organs. And then what happens when we release that, the organs, whoa, now we're exposed and what's going on? And then you'll have clients come in, oh, it felt great after the next day, but in 2 days, it tightened up even more. And then the next sessions, I don't know what happened. I'm feeling very ill now and a lot of pain is because we got rid of that protector. So fascia is a great way as to help mobility, but also acts as a protective mechanism around those structures. So when we are working in that, we want to make sure that the area is safe first before releasing any kind of the exterior kind of protection of muscle, skeletal, fascia. But yeah, if we look about the pathways, the hormones travel through the bloodstream. What is surrounded by that? Fascia. So if there's a restriction in that fascia, that's going to affect the signaling and the pathways.
I want to go back to what you said about the protection, because I feel like that also corresponds to the nervous system and how fascia interconnects with that. Just because I've had that happen to me when I went for massage many years ago. Like, they massaged my psoas because it was quote unquote under tension, and then I got extremely ill, like fever, chills, like I couldn't get out of bed for 48 hours, and I was like, whoa, what is happening? And so I think it's such an interesting point to dive into, if you don't mind. Can you speak more about the protection of the fascia and how it holds? Okay.
In my mind, why is the body protecting in the first place? Why are people, so if people are coming in and saying, I've had this pain for a long time, that is my excuse. Maybe I'm not going to go right in and release that. If they said, you know what, I ran a marathon, I have tight hips, I have that, okay, that's a different story, right? But if I've had it for years now and it keeps coming and going, and when I'm stressed, it activates a little bit more. When I'm in this situation, it activates more. It seizes up, it locks up. You know that when people come in, I don't know what happened. I bent down to tie my shoes and my back broke out, right? It's such a like, no, your body will protect in a way for a long time because it's so intelligent. It's going to protect the body more.
Yeah,
So
it creates a holding pattern, essentially.
it's a natural compensation factor. The body is create that protection through fascia, through neural signaling. It is meant to protect, right? But at one point, the body's, I can't breathe anymore. I can't send other signals. So let's say if I sprain my ankle, for example, it's going to go to the next joint, the knee. So the knee's like, I can't support it anymore. I'm going to go to the biggest joint, the hip. And then I can't support it. I'm going to go to the ribs and I'm going to go to the shoulders. Now person's, my jaw is locked. So it travels because that's a natural compensation factor of the body. It's very intelligent till it can't support anymore. If we're talking about the organs itself, if we talk about reproductive organs, people might not come with issues in reproductive system. They might have pelvic problems, sacral issue, coccyx issues, low back issues, constipation, like all those things. And we start to look at the link. Why are they getting constipation? It could be because there is inflammation or scar tissue within the reproductive system that's pushing on the colon, for example, that's creating that restriction there. So all our organs are pretty jammed up right together, but they're separated by fascia. All the organs are surrounded by what we call peritoneum. So we have all these protective layers there. But when there's adhesions and restrictions, it starts to bind against each other. So it's not functioning the way it should be. So that's what we call motility. When it moves and shears and glides, that's when it's moving well. And that's all fascia. No matter what we do, any kind of technique, we are going to be influencing fascia some way or another.
Yes, absolutely.
There's inflammation, when there's dysfunction, what happens to fascia? It tightens up, right? Immune system, what is immune system? It's that area that gets inflamed and that fascia gets into that protective and it stays like that.
Yeah, it's because of the way that our bodies work. Like, why does fascia hold one way in a body and then another in another's body? Like, how does little t, big T trauma settle into the body and just pick a spot instead of we all hold it in the same?
That'd be too easy, yeah?
Yeah. It's what makes the experiences move in this way. And I think when I was reading a little bit more of the literature, it was saying fascia moves in infinite ways and it never does the same movement twice. And so even if you make the same gesture, it's perfecting that gesture and it perfected it to that point. And then you do the same gesture and it's doing a completely different dance, but we see it as the same. And so it's so interesting that when something happens to us, how the fascia is moving can create that holding. And so we don't know. We have to play detective. We have to investigate. We have to go into the body.
Yeah.
Something that I always notice when I'm on your table is that my digestive system gurgles like nonstop. Is this something that's normal that happens if the body is starting to release? Is that the signal that you're looking for?
Yeah, things are starting to move. Things are starting to function, right? My clients say, "Oh, sorry, I didn't eat this morning." I'm like, "No, we're working, so things are starting to move along that digestive tract, for example, right?
Yeah.
We want those little noises. Those are, and it's a sign of release that's happening there.
It's so cool. I love as soon as I lie down on your table, my digestive system is just like
I've had clients where I work on their cranium and then their stomach drops. It's like, oh my God, as long as when you worked on my occiput in that area, my stomach just start to gurgle, right? Because of that connection too, right? The
yeah.
vagus nerve is connected and all the brain stem is there. While I'm working on that, it's going to send the signals.
Yeah, I love that. It's like that's almost like the first clue into our body that we're relaxing. Speaking of first clue, you've recently created a course, the roadmap to the body. And I'd love for you to share what it is, what inspired you, and yeah, how can we access this kind of understanding that you're creating?
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this for a long time where, there, and that's from my perspective also, that there are so many techniques out there, so many workshops out there, and that pressure for massage therapists in Quebec to build their hours. And we get so many people out there that are doing workshops and calling themselves specialists, right? I did a weekend on this, and now I do that. And where it almost becomes a little bit scary from my perspective of, do they have the foundations? I'm like, okay, you learn a technique on the weekend, great, you'll have tools. I'm not saying those workshops are good or bad, it's just, do people take the time to go back and learn the foundations of the body?
Mm,
And from my own personal experience, I start to be more efficient in my work when I dove deeper into learning more about the anatomy and physiology, right? Also, I had to do it because I was teaching anatomy physiology, so that kind of gave me a push. But also, I realized the importance of it, right? When you're in massage school, you just did the anatomy physiology as get it over and done with, but you never go back and look at it again, right? You just learn more manual techniques, but you will never go back and learn about the endocrine system or the reproductive system, right? I had to, when I taught it, I had to relearn it again, right? And from there, that drew me clients coming in with infertility problems, hormone issues. I had to go deeper into that, right? And then more in that training in that perspective. So that's one reason why I decided to build something that was not about technique. It's about building that strong foundation of understanding the body. Okay, fine. You have all these techniques. Great. All these tools, but do you have the IKEA manual? I have all these parts and all things, but do I know what to do with them or when to do with them or how to do with them? And again, I have students coming saying, I don't know what to do.
mhm.
This person's coming with this issue. I don't know what to do, right? So my mind is I have a very logic mind. Like we're planning, right? So this happens and that happens, that's creating, that's linked to that, that nervous system is that. And I find that's lacking a lot where a lot of modalities out there is like, oh, shoulder pain, here's the recipe. But shoulder pain could be so many things out there, right? But if we take the time to understand how each system works, or even how to palpate it, or how does a vascular pathways, how does it feel like under my hands when it's functional, when it's dysfunctional, right? How to notice when the body is in an emotional trauma that's holding that a certain dysfunction there, right? How is the pathways of the vagus nerve? What's going on with the body? So the more we can understand what is happening, all those tools become more effective. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
you're
why. I wanted to create something that was different, not another technique, not to brand it and copyright. This is my technique. This is my registered technique. Okay, and then what? It's just another added thing. We need something to blend all those things together as a foundation, right? For body
Mhm.
workers.
Yeah, to help people connect the dots. And I think that comes with experience, right? You can't connect the dots after one workshop. You can't connect the dots after two workshops. I think over years and decades of learning and working with so many bodies, you build that course, you build that system, and then to have people learn from you, they're privileged to learn that information inside of a course because it takes so long to build that type of knowledge. But if it was like the first course in, I would be lost. So it's so nice to have someone say, hey, the body is super complex. We have many systems and everything is interconnected. Let's take a moment to take what you've learned and let's bring it all together so you can understand a
Yeah.
shoulder pain might not be a shoulder pain. It might be is what it is, but it could be many things. If people want to learn more from you, where can they find you? How can they work with you?
So you can go on my website, tonyengbodywork.com. Right? It pretty much shows everything that I've done. I try to update as much as I can. Yeah. From there, Facebook. I don't have Instagram. But yeah, Facebook workshop. I do also do workshops for non-body workers. I'm doing one on nervous system regulation at a yoga studio. So I also not just about a teacher for body work, but I also want to bring this work to everyday people, how to tune into your own body. Even this roadmap, the body does not just have to be for body workers. I'm thinking even down the line, I want to build this for everyday people that can tune into their body and how to listen to their body, know what's happening when there's function and dysfunction from that level, that visualization, that meditation, and how to explore that, right?
I think it's so important, especially specifically in Quebec. I don't know about everyone else's healthcare system and what's going on, but I know it's pretty bad in different places of the world. But here, I feel like the healthcare system kind of drops you and leaves you on your own. So to understand your body, to understand what's happening, to feel empowered even to go into the healthcare system and advocate because you understand your body and the signals that it's creating is so important. So
Yeah.
thank you. And I think that's incredible that you're going to open it up to non-body workers.
I think it's important. And I think people are, that's what they want and that's what they need, especially now where there's so much chaos around the world that they just need to come back like, how is my nervous system doing? What is going on? And
Mhm.
without GPT, let's check it out. ChatGPT tells you what to do, what to feel, right? Instead of
Oh God,
what if I go
ChatGPT
into
is
my
not.
own ChatGPT? Yeah. It's funny you say
Uh,
that because that's what it is. That's the world we live in now, right? Let's look it up, right? Even when I'm teaching, it's like I'm sharing my experience, but people might look at ChatGPT for the answer. Shoulder pain, what to do, right? Instead of I've seen these clients, this is something that based on experience, based on what I've felt, based on what I've noticed, opposed to ChatGPT telling you, give me a recipe again. This is what you do. This is what's going on. It might not be what's going on with that person, but it's such a way of how people deal with it now. And it's so accessible. There's great things, right? I use it all the time where I'm like, okay, what's the anatomy of that? What was I palpating again? This person's going, that's pathology to get more information, but also to bring your own thought process into it too as a therapist. Right?
100%. I couldn't agree
Yeah.
more. I think AI is absolutely incredible and we have so many tools now at our fingertips, but it's all about nuance, right? If you don't know what to ask, you're not going to get the answer. So you
Yeah.
have to understand the lay of the land before you go into ChatGPT or any AI tool and say, oh, here, this is what I'm really looking for, because you're going to get a generic recipe if you don't really know the little details, the nuance, the actual story, experience, how to connect the dots. So it's really important to also learn and understand for sure.
Yeah. Experience.
Yeah. experience. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tony. This conversation has been so enlightening and so wonderful. And I'm so excited to share it. And my hope is that more and more people will go to you because you're amazing.
Thanks, Nat.
That was Tony Eng. You can find his work in the show notes. Please go and look. If you live in the Montreal area, book an appointment with him or check out his courses. You will not regret it. If something in this episode stayed with you, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment, send me a message, tell me what landed. I'm Natalie Kekal. This is Get Obsessed. We'll be back in 2 weeks.